Greetings out there in YouTube land. This is Morris Man, and as always, I thank you guys for coming to my channel. I apologize if you hear a light hum in the background. I contacted Comet about 3 weeks ago. They said they'd be out in a week, so I got to call them back on Wednesday. Because when I call them before Wednesday, I got a pre-recorded message in. They're real crowded or they're real busy. The best time to call them is on Wednesday, so I got to call them back on Wednesday to get this done, because this has been going on for years. But let me get to the video at hand. I'm going to entitle this one of the most intricate bass lines in R&B. And the gentleman that played this bass line was, and you already know the answer to that question, James Jamerson. James Jamerson to the bass is what Jimi Hendrix was to the guitar. The only difference is, unfortunately, everybody recognized Jimi Hendrix's talent. Across the board, it's like if you were born in the 60s, 50s, 70s, you know who Jimi Hendrix was. But unfortunately, James Jamerson did not get the same amount of notoriety. And he deserved every bit of it. And I'm going to tell you what makes this video, this particular song, so unique is Bernadette by the Four Tops. I suggest anybody that's a musician buy this documentary. This has been out for about 15 years now, I think, if not more. It's called Standing in the Shadows, and it gives praise to the musicians who were the Funk Brothers. And it wasn't until the 70s that when Marvin Gaye released the What's Going On album that all of these gentlemen were given credits. Their name was on the album. This is the guy that played bass. This is the guy that played guitar. This is the guy that played the other guitar. This is the guy that played drums, keyboard. Up until then, they were just known as the Funk Brothers. And they had played on more hits than Elvis Presley and the Beatles combined. And nobody didn't know who they were. Didn't know who they were. And James Jamerson was one of the Funk Brothers. And I'm going to tell you why, to me, and this is just my personal opinion, why that bass line is so intricate. Because what's interesting is when the documentary opens up, they isolate that bass line when they could have chose hundreds of them and played it, when the documentary started. So that lets me know that even they knew that this was so incredible what he did. Because according to one of the percussionists, the guy that played the tambourine, he said that when they talked about James Jamerson, he said that James Jamerson was playing a phrase he mentioned was cut time. Now, I'm not 100% what cut time means, but my take on that is this. Because as I listen to James Jamerson bass lines, because I'm going to give you a good example, because I did a cover of Bernadette. And this is the first time I've ever done this. Out of all the 4,000 videos I've done, I give you an analysis of that particular cover and why it's important to do that. So as he's playing, again, the bass line is, well, this is how most bass players will play it. Da, 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 da. No, I'm messing this up. But James Jamerson played it boom boom ba boom ba boom 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 ba boom ba boom 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 ba boom ba boom 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 boom. He even added some stuff at the tail end. And there's a difference between playing ghost notes, the notes that you just add at random in between the main phrasing. And this wasn't ghost notes, because ghost notes are random. You don't usually play the same random phrase as a ghost note the next bar down or the next bar from that. Again, it was like he was doing double or triplets. And what's amazing about that is he did it with one finger. Because when I played that piece, and I'm a poster cover, I had to use 2 fingers. I was trying to use 3 because I'm like, shit, my one finger ain't fast enough to get back and forth and be so smooth about it. Because a lot of times you can tell and hear the rushing in players when they trying to add these extra notes. They up here playing their part, and then they got to go down here and add a little feel, and then they got to get back before, the measure, when the measure kicks in. And it sounds rushed. But when they isolate it, and then you can hear it in the recording, it's like he's smooth. He's adding all this stuff. And then the other thing is it's not sounding busy, because there's some people that do too much. And this is not the case for James Jamerson. It's like everything fit, everything had the same time spacing, and he had to have extremely amount of speed to do this and not come off as sloppy and you kind of ahead of yourself. You didn't get in and get back there in time. And what's so interesting is they mentioned it in the documentary. It was this percussionist guy played tambourine. He said that how the session of what's going on, Marvin Gaye's What's Going On came about. Marvin was working in the studio, and he working on what's going on. And he went to go get James Jamerson because he's like, I got to get this off today. So he went and found James. James was stoned out of his mind. He's like, I need, we got to get this done. So James Jamerson agreed to come to the studio, and he was so drunk that he played that iconic bass line, laying on his fucking back. That's amazing, because most guys can't play that bass line on their feet and sober. That guy was so special. It's so unfortunate how he died and his legacy didn't kick off big time. Because the Motown 25 special when Michael Jackson unveiled the moonwalk, the historic, dance of Billie Jean. James Jamerson was in the audience. He had scalped a ticket earlier and got in. And I'm like, it's a damn shame. The greatest bass player that ever lived is sitting in the audience when he should be up on stage, or at least getting an acknowledgement on stage, even if he didn't play. Bring all the Funk Brothers that were still alive at that point on stage and give them special recognition. And I think he died shortly after that, alcoholism. We lose a lot of great musicians due to drugs, and it's a shame. Those two should not be tied in together, but they go hand in hand. I'm in the industry, and I know a lot of people, and I'm not giving names, that are using cocaine, drinking excessively, losing gigs because of their habits, coming to the studio so stoned that they can't play, and it's so unfortunate that becomes an attachment to these historical, legendary artists. Because I just did a cover of Stone Temple Pilots, I think it's called Sex Type Thing, and the lead singer, I think he died years back due to drug abuse, and that's like, it's just so unfortunate that all these brilliant people cannot avoid this or suppress it and shut it down, because I can say the reason why I never touched any of that stuff, never drank, never smoked, never did cocaine, none of that, no heroin, none of that stuff, none. I smoked marijuana. I smoked 2 joints my entire life when I was in high school. And those 2 joints, I think, were given to me by a family member who I trusted. So it's like, okay. And I didn't like it. I was like, I don't like to feel disoriented, and I need all my faculties. I don't be walking around real vulnerable and don't know what I'm doing and all that stuff, But again, it's so sad that they leave like that. But I did a cover, and again, the reason why I'm doing this video here is to let you guys know that I'm not James Jamerson. I can't play like James Jamerson. I did justice to the cover, and I did a decent job, but nobody can play like James Jamerson. And that's the point I'm making in this video. He was a one-of-a-kind guy, I don't think I've ever heard anybody play like him. I've heard people that play in his style, because in the 60s, the theme song to the Bill Cosby Show, not when he was a doctor, but back in the 60s, I think 1968 to 1970, because they only did, I think, 2 seasons when he was the gym teacher, Chet Kincaid. Listen to the intro of the soundtrack or theme song, then listen to the outro when the show is over. And I'm listening to the bass line. I'm like, that's kind of the closest I've ever heard anybody kind of play like James Jamerson, because it's like, when you hear it, it's so unique. It's like, what do I start? Because when I decided to do this cover today, I'm like, I listened to him, like, let me see if I can do that. And I listened, I'm like, shit, ain't no way I'm going to do this. But then I took time and broke it down. I had to break it down. And the reason why I'm not giving notes like usually a bass lesson, because I'm like, it's too hard, too much to follow. It's like, it's hard to follow that. The only way that I can teach you guys that is to have you sit right next to me, slow it down, break it down, and say, this is what I'm doing, and it's close to what he's doing. And I stress close to what he's doing, not exactly. Because I have some people that I've interacted with, and this is the reason why you need to go get lessons, because you don't know what you don't know. I had a guy say, oh, could you teach me some Jimi Hendrix solos? I'm like, dude, if it was that easy, we all be playing like Ernie or playing like Jimmy. You know, I could give you the notes, but it's not just about the notes. It's the style and the flavor and the flair and approach that people like Jimmy and James Jamerson take to do these pieces. You know, and it's like, it's hard to replicate that. You know, but when you don't know what you don't know and think that just simply somebody can teach you to be wailing like Jimmy and playing like James Jamerson, it's like, go get lessons. You know, go get formal lessons, and then you'll understand what goes into being able to do this, as opposed to just somebody simply giving you notes. Because, I mean, again, I could give you that. I can give you the notes to Jimi Hendrix solos, you know, but most of us ain't going to sound like Jimmy playing it. So it's like, it's pointless, you know. It's pointless. And then, you know, find your own flair. You know, we all start off with a hero, but our hero is kind of like our foundation. We start with this, and then we build to the point where we have our own originality, as opposed to all your life you trying hard to sound just like Jimmy and Ernie and James Jamerson, you know, because those guys didn't sit down and try to make a whole life career out of sounding like somebody else. But I'm going to sound up now. But I thought I would post this video before I posted my cover of Bernadette, you know, because, you know, a lot of respect for James James. It's like, man, all that stuff was just done with one hand. Most players play with at least two hands. You know, some play with three. But he did all that with one hand. And his speed and the triplets of the notes, it's amazing. Because I'm like, man, where do I start trying to do this? I mean, where do I start? But again, I think I did a decent job, you know. I am by no means a James Jamerson and play like him, but I did think I did the cover some justice. So check it out, because it's going to be posted after this video. Till next time, take care.